All right, Viva, you Canadian
We're going back to Canada.
son of a. I don't. If you ever.
If an
Canadian
American,
heavy
if a
episode.
flight originating out of Minneapolis crashes in Toronto, where do they bury the survivors?
Where?
They don't bury
don't
the
bury the
survivors,
survivors.
Vinny. Come on, get with the run.
You got me.
So this is, I say the only reason we can make light of this and laugh about it a little bit is because everyone, by the grace of God, survived, and it's nothing shy of a freaking miracle. Ordinarily, you wouldn't play plane crashes. This is the Delta flight. There's a bunch of nuances to this. It's a Delta flight, but it's actually run by a company called, I forget, a smaller Endeavor, a regional company. It flies the Delta banner. It's a Bombardier plane, which I believe are made in Canada, crashing at the Pearson Airport in Toronto. If you haven't seen the footage, we don't need to play all of it, but let's play this because it's the stuff of nightmares, and everyone on that plane, God put a finger on and said, you all get a second chance, make the most of it. Play this and watch the plane crashing as it lands.
And tell me what you see about the landing.
Well, we're gonna get into the thoroughness. It looks, everything's normal. You imagine everything in this flight was normal right until now.
Like
Bam.
there's no
It looks-
approach.
yeah,
There's
it
no
looks-
approach. You just slam.
I have a question. So
We can let this play while we do it.
We've all been on flights and everything where they touch down and the idiot plane clappers start to applaud. You think everybody was booing on this plane? Like, boo, that's not how you're supposed to do it.
So the plane crashes. Then we can just see very briefly what it looks like from the outside because
fast forward
the
that.
staff getting everyone off the plane
Right there.
is
look at this.
they get them out like pros, and then look at this thing.
Look at dude. Like
The fuselage is in one piece, not on fire because the wings broke off. I learned. So we in our locals community, vivabarneslaw.locals.com, we've got a number of like 100,000 people. There's a pilot who I met, and I rang him up yesterday. I said, can you come on and explain what's going on here? Commercial airline pilot with 24 years military experience. He says, yeah, that thing hit hard like it, right at the end. It didn't do something called flaring, which is you tip up your nose, you create ground effect, which is like compressing the air as you land.
that's when
and
the flaps are down when you're coming
it
in.
wasn't so much the flap issue. The flaps issue are another thing, but it's physical. Like you bring up the tip a little bit, it compresses the air, it creates a little buffer, and it softens the landing. This one, for whatever the reason, he said, looks like it's descending at 4,000 to 5,000 feet. Whether or not there's a tailwind and doesn't do it, it didn't flare. It didn't have any soft. It hit hard. The wheels collapsed. It then rolled. The fuel is in the wings, which is why the burning occurred away from the fuselage.
Well, that's what I was going to ask you. It looks like the front landing gear is still out and open, but it doesn't look like the back landing.
Oh no, the back collapsed.
Just
It collapsed.
exploded.
It came down hard. The only question is going to be why? Was it a tailwind? Did they not flare? Was it incompetence or lack of experience? And I'm not saying that.
And listen, I don't know if you guys seen what's the movie, Office Space. You could never have enough flare. I'm all for put as much.
Oh, that's
flair.
the movie.
piece of
Yeah,
flair.
I thought you were going to
Office
go with the movie Final Destination
No,
because that's what I was thinking.
I want so much flair.
Yeah.
ridiculous.
Another possible explanation I saw people floating around was that because there was like 22 centimeters of snow on the airport at that time, that as you're coming in for a landing, when it's over freshly fallen snow or water, it's really difficult to gauge visually how far away you are because the snow basically erases all sense of scale for the ground.
Yeah.
So depending on who was flying this, an experienced pilot should have been able to figure out how to avoid this. But if they're coming in too hot and they think, oh, I've got like 1,500 feet of clearance, and they're like 20 feet off the ground.
But nowadays, are pilots even looking out the windows
AI.
to know
No,
where they land? Or
There's unmanned. There's still visuals apparently when they land. And the thing about this one is that it didn't come in hot all the way. It was just a section right before they touched down where there was no flare. But set that aside in terms of the cause. Bring it back to Mehdi Hasan. Now this is not
this
directly in response to that particular plane crash, but people are blaming Trump. Mehdi Hasan, do you guys know who he is?
Yes, of course.
Okay,
Yes.
he's the worst, among the worst people on earth.
Sucks ass.
He tweets down at the bottom in response to this is another plane crash, but there's been a spate of them, which is why people are blaming Trump, even though this one happened in Canada, in Canadian airspace with a Canadian-made plane. Somebody writes, there's a two dead in a small plane crash, whatever. Mehdi Hasan writes, "Make American planes crash again."
What a
straight up.
fucking
I thought
scumbag.
it was a meme when I saw this. Then he has to come out and say, no, I wasn't promoting terrorism. I was just being a crass ass. But if you thought that I was making a terrorist reference, that's because you're Islamophobic. And then he gives out one of these half-ass, I apologize, but the MAGA are Islamophobic racists are making it into something that it's not. I just wanted to. It was a poorly phrased, ill-timed joke. Whatever. Mehdi Hasan, you've been put on blast. You're a jackass.
You're a scumbag.
Moving it over to the next one. Senator Mark Kelly. I remember seeing this guy, and it's funny, like if I go and I see someone talking and they're kind of sounding stupid, and I can just predict they're going to be a Democrat. Senator Mark Kelly says, another airline accident just today. I'm not sure if this was directly in response to the one in Toronto, Canada. He writes, this really doesn't feel like the right time to be downsizing at the FAA. More bad decisions by Elon Musk and Donald Trump. Do you imagine this is Trump's first month, and instead of looking at a decade of DEI potentially causing this, they look to a month of Trump presidency and discussion about downsizing the FAA, which hasn't actually occurred yet. So no rush too fast to blame Trump, sir.
And I don't remember this same energy when trains were derailing and Paternity Pete and Joe Biden were running the
Not
show
at all.
last year, right?
People were. I do remember people blaming them because
Our side.
Yeah, absolutely. But that they had been in power for, they had been responsible for their duties for a certain extended period of time already. The whole thing is like, this doesn't just happen at the snap of a finger where you talk about downsizing the FAA or making cuts and then planes start crashing. And if it does, you might want to think people are deliberately crashing them so they can then say, haha, look what you've done.
That's what I was going to say.
Listen, the piece of a scumbag number. Do you guys know who Brian
I know. I was on Piers Morgan with this guy, and it's like, bro, the hits just keep on coming with these morons.
The number of people
bro.
you have screamed at on Piers Morgan is just it's staggering.
But if you look at the people that I have to deal with.
Who
like,
was that
man,
most recent one? The Italian woman talking about RFK Jr. And I couldn't figure out if she was parody. I thought for a second.
I thought it was a joke. I thought it was a joke.
Okay.
I thought it was
You
a
know
joke.
who she is?
I don't know her name, but I know exactly what you're talking about. I've been on.
Anytime Piers posts one of those thumbnails where it's like, the panel of guests, and then Vinny, like, forehead vein, red face, like,
I
it's
just
going to be a
can't
good one.
believe it. Like, people like that exist, and the fact that when Mehdi Hasan, who I think is just a hatchet for the just a absolute douchebag. He's a douchebag. He's freaking like, how can you say make American planes crash again?
Oh, I was just
and
making
then you
a
blame
joke.
and then you blame people for being Islamophobic. You're a scumbag, bro. Just a scumbag.
In any race, religion, or creed, Mehdi Hasan is the scum of scum. Very closely followed by Brian Tyler Cohen, who goes by the moniker No Lie with BTC on Twitter is his other handle. I guess this one is enough of a lie that he couldn't post it under No Lie. Play this clip and just listen to this.
let me hear
Some lie.
Let me hear this.
The reality is that Trump rammed through a bunch of unqualified nominees to lead departments that they were incapable of leading, and this is what happens as a result. This right here is the consequence. Donald Trump owns all of this. Elon Musk owns all of this. And all of these spineless Republican senators who greenlit Sean Duffy own all of this. These people are such fucking cowards that they felt it was more important to kowtow to Daddy Trump than actually take their advice and consent role seriously. And
your
now,
neck on your
we can
shirt
barely
is
go a
baggy.
day without a plane crashing somewhere in this country.
Is this
Maybe
a
next time these
1.5?
Republicans should try and
No, this is
disconnect
just
their
He just
lips
sounds
from Donald
feminine.
Trump's ass.
I love when these
They're
betas
supposed
like
to be in
this
office
guy and Hog
representing
call
for a
everybody
change,
else cowards.
And then the whole country might be better off.
No, he hides behind his ideological silo to call people effing cowards. And now we can't even go a day without planes falling out of the sky. And it's like this idiot thinks you have 4 years to 10 years of DEI promoting incompetence. That's not the cause. It's 1 month of Trump in power. Well, wouldn't you know the aggregate knowledge of the interwebs? Now, I'm not saying that this is the cause of the crash that
Whatever.
occurred.
We don't know yet. We don't know.
We don't know.
Because we don't know all the information yet, which they
All
love
the-
to hold it for us.
All that we know, I said, like, it might be a good time to release the names of the pilots because, the people might think it's sort of fraudulent concealment. Yeah. I have been told by other members of our community that you don't release the names of the pilots because if they're cleared in an inspection afterwards, then you sort of tarnish their names. But you could give us some identifiable features of the pilots.
How about were they female? How about just tell us?
Well, we don't need to worry. We'll find out, and maybe it's nothing. But this is a montage of TikTok posts and whatever you want to call them from the company that owned the regional thing, that was running the regional thing. What was it called again?
Endeavor.
Endeavor.
Endeavor Air.
You turn the volume down just so you don't get copy claimed on
lower the music,
CommuTube.
but let's just see it.
But you'll get the gist because there's you can play it. We'll
Go
talk
ahead,
over it now.
Let me see what's going on here.
It's girl power. It's
Hot
boss power. Here we
pilot.
go. What's she saying here? Leave the.
I don't think so. I don't think.
Here you go. You got it's girl boss. Like this is Kamala Harris, girl boss, and there's nothing wrong with it.
No, she's really good at what she's doing. But again, they're proud of their DEI hires.
They keep going. It keeps going. And basically, the bottom line is unmanned, and it's a bunch of women. And I think there's a bit of a pun intended there.
I don't know what you guys are talking about, where it's like everybody's uncomfortable with women being on planes, because like I'm fully on board with there being female flight crews. Someone has to serve me peanuts.
So stupid.
Oh, no.
Yo, is your wife? If your wife is watching right now,
No, my wife would not get on a flight
that's
flown
so-
by a woman.
So that's the
Face
company
Natalie.
right there. So we don't know, but the idea that the reflex is to immediately blame Trump for a flight a crash that occurs in Canada with over Canadian airspace, and some geniuses on the internet it took off from Minneapolis, and that's the FAA. Whatever. We'll see what the
ghost
cause
of
was.
George Floyd arose
No,
and snatched the plane
It
out of the
might
sky.
be also just total force majeure, a sequence of events, and maybe the most experienced
whatever.
pilot.
It's been happening a lot in the past.
It's been happening a
couple
lot.
years.
And the bottom line, you got these companies that were out there celebrating DEI and not just outright competence, and you will not be able to blame people for being suspicious and saying this might be the culmination of a decade of idiocracy and not a month of meritocracy.
So let me ask you a question. I have a and I want to know what the chat thinks. If you go on an airplane and you look in the cockpit and you see two female pilots, are you staying on that flight or are you getting off? I genuinely want to know, not being biased, not being sexist, do you feel comfortable with two women being on the flight? And this is what I tweeted earlier today, Viva. I posted earlier today, I said, regardless, there's rumors that one of these girls might have been a pilot, maybe both, I don't know. Looks like the odds are that's potentially leaning towards one of them, okay? Why not? Why doesn't Delta, American, and all these freaking airlines, they all have apps. I have every single app because I've traveled so much. Why does their app integrate like Lyft and Uber, just a rating process of the, like meaning, today you're going on such, Amy Dangerfield is flying this flight. She has this many years of experience. This is who she is.
Bro, I
This
can't
is-
even drive a car.
Yeah, no, yeah. Amy's like, I'm not, but what if it's like, and she's had an incident before? No, like, what do you mean? She fucking flipped off a runway once. I want to know that. I'm not getting on that flight. I'm
Pretty
sorry.
much the whole chat, well, a lot of people in the chat are saying that they would get off. And then when we take a look at the poll so far, it looks like 55% of people out of 83 votes are saying they would not stay on that.
Nobody's getting off.
The
Nobody's
majority-
realistically getting off because it's so impractical. But
But if you look at the cockpit,
you're praying.
But this is the argument we always make against DEI is because honestly, 12 to 15 years ago, if I got on a plane and saw two women, I might just be like, hey. And now because of the way things have gone, now I see them and I'm like, bye.
Well, but
It's
here's my
crazy.
question. Be honest.
Yeah.
With all these people and all these practices that they're talking about, it's in their. Dude, they're making these videos and they're proud about it. They're promoting this DEI. Do you think, before we close the show, there's incidences where they have a pilot that's better than this pilot, but they go, we have to put, like, she could still fly. She's still capable, Dave. She still knows how to land and take off, and she has hours. But because it's a dude, we have to put her in there. Does that happen?
Yes.
Undoubtedly. I
They-
mean,
they-
Okay,
they
so
they
fuck
proved
that.
They proved it with court cases.
Yeah, and guess-
where they went through the exams that it takes to apply for various positions with the FAA, pilot exams, and they found that minority pilots and female applicants and various people who are basically not white men were given questions that allowed them to get bumped up higher on the list.
I don't like. See,
The-
I'm anti that.
Well, and it's a good point.
Period.
Is like 20 years ago, I think the DEI or the inclusion started maybe a decade ago. 20 years ago, if you were to have seen it, it would have been a no-brainer. The thought wouldn't have occurred to you.
Because I know that she has skills. 'Cause
Well,
I
and
know
now
she's nasty.
the thought occurs to you, and if hypothetically I get in and Tulsi Gabbard is flying the plane because I have an established relationship of confidence in her decisions, wouldn't second guess it. But because of identity politics, I would say, did this person earn it, or were they elevated to it? And it's a big freaking problem when you're talking about teaching. It's a big problem, but not life and death. Maybe in a longer term, flying, military, police, things that require surgeons, things where it is merit, necessity, as a matter of life and death. DEI has zero place there.
But you know what? Let's say hypothetically that whoever was flying that plane that crashed and flipped upside down, the cockpit was inhabited by two straight white guys. Does that change the situation at all for us?
No.
Is it any better that two white guys flipped a plane than two black women?
No.
No, it's a clear competence problem.
Yeah,
of
somebody that's not qualified to-
It's not about race, it's not about gender. It's the fact that you have allowed incompetent people to take positions they don't deserve to have, and standards have been lowered to where now this kind of thing happens on a weekly basis.
Yep.
And that is the problem.
That is the problem. So And I agree with you.
All that to say, by the way, it's a freaking miracle. Everybody survived. I think
Yeah,
15
thank
or
God.
18 are in hospital. 3 are apparently in
Oh,
critical.
and they're all
'Cause
suing.
You imagine it, you hit the ground at 4,000 to 5,000 feet per minute descent, and then you flip upside down with those stupid little narrow seatbelts.
The truth is, I'm always so bothered when they're like, "Pull your seat straight up, put your
No.
seatbelt on."
Now
put
you
stuff,
know
and
why.
I'm kind of like,
No, no.
all right,
And look,
all right.
now, well, when people say,
Yeah.
"Hey, man, have a safe flight," bullshit. That's the pilots. I go in there and I look at the pilots every single time, and I go, "Are you guys good?"
And
That's
you
when
have
you're
to
most
appreciate
likely
You
to
guys good?
The whole thing about the Bombardier planes, doors blowing off, was also questionably the result of the DEI policies that they've implemented over
Well,
the
the
last
people-
decade.
yeah, people
so
cutting
it's like
corners.
it's just they want to reflexively blame Trump. The reality is these types of consequences of policy happen like bankruptcy. It's very slow and then all at once, and we might be seeing the culmination of a decade plus of identity politics over competence.
Someone just said it's called a cockpit for a reason. Shout out Jack Dubs. That's funny.
Thanks,
Also,
Jack.
hello, Bob Jeff.
So if you like this clip, click right here. And if you want to see more like it, click right here. Stay angry, Patriots.